You're next to him now, so you're
That's when I get up there.
no, that's where I do.
I know, it's right.
Sitting on the wrong edge.
No, you're perfect. You're perfect.
Because you don't show up and like, you get put together. Where's my other?
Hey, Gigi. Good. Seen you in a while.
Okay.
Wait a minute.
Oh, because I missed a meeting, and I'm gonna miss a meeting. Terrible.
All right, we ready to get started?
Let's do it. Want to get food too.
Who are we waiting on? All right.
Some people in the kitchen, but they'll.
Really? Okay. I'll call to order the dinner between the Superior Town Council and CAPS for August 25th, 2025. Welcome, CAPS. Thanks for joining us for a little get together. It's been a while since we've had dinner together. So
This being late, it's been a year and a half.
yeah,
I think.
yeah, and definitely some new faces around the table. So why don't we go around the table, introduce ourselves, and then we'll hand it over to Drew and he can run the show. So I'm Mark Lasis, I'm the mayor.
I'm Sherry Smith. I'm CAPS.
Mike Foster, Town Council. Jason Sabu, Mayor Pro Tem.
Heather Craycraft, Town Council.
Stephanie Miller, Town Council.
Neil, I'm on CAPS and Town Council. I'm the rep.
Jenny Howish, Town Council.
Jennifer Garner, staff liaison. Susan Chevalier, CAPS vice chair.
I don't need a chair.
Introduce yourself real quick, though.
Where do I have to?
Uh-huh.
Liza. Okay. CAPS.
And Drew Vaughn, CAPS chair,
Artist Leibowitz, CAPS.
newest member.
Brand new member.
Yeah.
Welcome.
All right.
Well, thanks everybody for hosting us. We're happy to be here chatting today. The agenda is pretty short. There's some filler stuff in here, but we got 4 items. I'm sure we could kill an hour with any or all of them. So I'll jump right in.
Seems like a dare to the
I'm
town.
worried about number 1.
Be amazed
Okay, so
if we can spend an hour talking about it.
all right, so murals and mural festival. So a couple weeks, maybe 2 months ago, you guys had a work session, and murals were brought up specifically. And of course, CAPS has already been on it. We had painted the mural in the tunnel over here, and we've got the Rock Creek Tunnel slated for a mural in just a couple of weeks, which is great. But we love the interest in painting murals, especially in downtown Superior, and this is something that we get feedback from residents too. You know, it's not just you guys, but it seems like something that should be easy. So we get comments all the time. Here's a great surface. Can we paint that? And it's harder than it sounds, but we're very happy that you guys are enthusiastic and we want to work together. One of our members, Brandon, who is not here yet, is connected with some folks up in Boulder. So they're the Streetwise Art group up in Boulder that does the Boulder Mural Festival. He talked to her and she came, Leah came to our last meeting and gave us a little pitch about how they run their show up there, which seemed like a great opportunity. So in the last month, she threw together a quick little packet for us as to how Superior might run our own mural event. And actually, this like literally came in Friday at 5 p.m. So I printed a handful. You know, there's only maybe, we'll share. There's only a couple.
That's fine.
There's half a dozen of these. So Streetwise, this is what they do. They run these mural festivals. Well, it's one of the things they do. But what she has done at no cost to the town, just volunteering in the interest of art and stuff, is she's gone around and looked at downtown Superior plus some other places like over at Brixmore and near McWilliams, the Williams Field. Identified a couple of walls that we could potentially paint. And then she's got a sort of a package here for, it's not just painting walls, it's a festival, it's an event, right? So there are things like, it's a community event, so the community celebration has music, food trucks, vendors, artist talks, there's youth engagement, there's guided tours of the murals, marketing and promotion and social media, that kind of stuff. And they provide services like, you know, they basically plan the event. So they, you know, they do coordination, they work with the town on permitting, they work on getting equipment and supplies, they work on funding, they work on getting permission for the surfaces, all of these things that when you think about painting a mural sound really hard, right? They already know how to do this. You see there that they sort of looking for a fee of about 15 to 20% of the total project budget. And then on the last page, it talks about where the money comes from. They look for about half of it to come from us and about 35% from sponsors and, you know, from local businesses, and then like in-kind donations from businesses and individuals. So that is an option that we had researched for the town. I have here, I was curious about those numbers, so I pass that around as well.
Like, that's the best use of the name tag I've ever seen.
Paperweight?
Paperclip.
So just, you know, I'll stop monologuing here in a second, but just to give an idea of kind of what this would cost. The top block there is all of the fixed cost things. If we chose to do the event, the workshop, the tours, the marketing, all that's like $17K. And then I did a couple of, you know, if we did 5 walls, 6 walls, 7 walls, 8 walls, 9 walls, and then she gave a range for each of the things, for the stipends, for the how much equipment you need and that kind of stuff. So I kind of did a high-low for each. But down the middle, I highlighted, say we did 7 walls, we gave sort of a middle-of-the-road stipend. Supplies, she said, $500 to $1,000, so I averaged it. I don't think we'd need lifts for every site, but, you know, a number in there, giving the organizer 20%. And so that brings the total event there to $57,000, but it only makes the town's part like $28K. Which, if you remember, we've paid $17K for almost $18K, I think, for the one on this tunnel, and we're doing 20 now because of inflation for the one at the top of the hill. So to get maybe 7 murals plus an event plus community engagement and media and all that stuff, you know, it feels like a pretty good value for me. But okay, I'll get off the soapbox from kind of the latest mural news that we have to bring you guys and see what everybody thinks.
Thanks for painting that picture for us.
Yeah. All right.
I see what you
And I'm glad Michaela's here because this is an event, really. And I don't think CAPS, you know, necessarily, personally, I don't think that we would run it. I think that we would be, Streetwise does say, they do say they would run the art choices from the artists past CAPS and the businesses where they're painting the walls. So there is an approval process. I kind of feel like that would be CAPS's role. And then, you know, the Streetwise is doing a bunch of the planning. They're getting the permissions, but, you know, any permits and contact with staff, you know, there's going to be a lot of town engagement, so.
So in some ways, it's kind of like National Trails Day is like the easiest example I can think of, where OSAT kind of thinks about the high level, what are the activities we want to have, and then staff has to try to implement, you know, within those boundary conditions. Is that kind of?
Yeah, okay. I mean, the council expressed strong interest in even something like this with a festival and certainly painting a bunch of walls in downtown Superior. And it feels to me like a pretty good opportunity at a pretty good price. I'm not sure where exactly the money would come from. Probably some of it could come from CAPS.
Do you see this, oh, sorry.
That's right.
Did you see this as something completely separate from Sundance time zone? Or is it something you see as like leading into it or built around that? Like,
So we had her come to our meeting and, you know, there's a lot. We could probably share that presentation as well. And one of the things we asked was, like, you know, is there like a theme? And sometimes there are themes. It doesn't have to be, but it could be, you know, Save the Planet is the theme and all the artists have that, and they, you know, everyone's doing, you know, sea turtles or something this year, right? And it could be film festival adjacent. We could do that if we wanted to. It's not necessarily. I also asked her about timeline. I guess, Brandon, is it true? How often do they do the Boulder Mural Festival?
Every year.
I asked her when she would do it if it was up to her. And she said, if you did this in '26, you'd be the only festival that year. Which sounds like she's not doing the Boulder mural.
She might not be.
So her recommendation was in the fall or late spring, avoiding the heat of the summer. Was basically her recommendation.
So from a staff look perspective, because I love all this, but I'm also very cognizant of staff being stretched thin. So what does that look like from a time perspective as far as what they would need to put into it? Is it intensive, or do they do most of the lift and staff that just kind of do things in the background? I just want to make sure it's nothing that would, and if it is a heavy lift on staff, is there, for the third party, we could farm that out too, that wouldn't add more to staff's plate?
Right, no, I think this is the third party. I would love to hear from Michaela as to what this, I sprung this on you, I'm sorry, but, to see how scary it sounds. She mentions in here specifically that support from the town would be helpful or something, support from town staff and community for event staffing, design, marketing, and fundraising would be helpful, is how she phrased the help she hoped to get from the town.
Mandatory necessarily.
Not mandatory, but how could you really, some's mandatory,
Yeah.
I would think, for permitting. And, couldn't do it
Well,
without.
and some of these are parking lots and everything, so we'd have to block traffic and things like that, which the town would have to do that.
Right, and if the internet holds
Those
up.
third-party event contractors usually do like the planning and logistics, but then they need the manpower part of it. So like the boots on the ground, the numbers, the day of kind of stuff. They
Right.
usually fall short in that area.
Could you cover that with volunteers?
So volunteers can't do the heavy lifting components, but they can man stations and help with logistics. I even fall short with the manpower, heavy lifting components of events. That is a very tricky part.
She's got an entry here, and again, this is, I looked to your experience, right? She says facilitating communication and involvement with local groups and volunteer coordination as part of the service she provides. Now, whether it's pulled off or not, that falls up short. I don't have experience with that, but it's part of what they're trying to offer here. And I should just give this to you, Kayla.
I mean, I would hope if that's the only event that year that's similar to that, then maybe there would be volunteers that aren't already committed to others that then would be stretched then. So hopefully that would help.
She actually came, again, on her own time. We didn't know she was doing this, but she came and took pictures of some walls, so this is some stuff in Brixmore. Sorry, JG.
Oh, she did.
Yeah, so in that packet, there's a link. And this is at McWilliams Field, one of those sheds.
So Drew, for the Boulder Mural Festival, how is it handled when it's not town property where murals are getting created? They have to get permission from Brixmore and all the private property?
100%, and that's what's so hard for us, and that's why I love that she's got experience in knocking on doors and making the phone calls and getting these permissions. That's what they do. And I don't want to get too bogged down in details, right? Because, it's like she's, some of these are in origins. Would they let us paint? I don't know. Some of them are brick. We know brick can be problematic for murals, but I think the details, that's that wall over there by the new field, the freeway, that would be a cool place for a mural. Of course, the Marshall Road underpass has a lot of opportunities.
Do you know what her lead time is in terms of if the board said, yes, do this? We obviously have to approve it in the 2026 budget, which won't happen until October, November. But what's the lead time if we wanted to do this in the spring? For her, because a piece of it, let's say we funded it, and I'm just going to throw a number out there, up to 30,000. But to truly get, the highlighted row 7, you got to find another 30,000. So how much time does she need to plan and to help, fundraise and everything else?
Yeah,
And it could be in here, and I haven't read it.
No, it's not. It's a good question. I don't know the answer.
Okay. That's fine.
Would the artwork have to be approved then too, and how long is that process?
Right.
How fast can caps go?
Yeah. Yeah, so the artist would have to come up with a sketch and we'd have to look at them. She does mention, potentially hotels to travel and that kind of stuff, but I feel like for our first one, for half a dozen murals, we can surely find local talent. So, both of the two big projects we've been doing are local.
And I'll just say, I love the concept of this, and I would love for CAPS to maybe talk with town staff about how can we get this resourced. And just gut level feel for me right now, 2026 sounds maybe a little too early to be able to pull this off. I realize that her schedule's free in 2026, but I think just with trying to understand staff capacity, because we say, yeah, let's do this in the fall. I know Michaela and her team have got a lot of big events happening in the fall, and so we want to be aware of that and figure out how do we resource that. But again, conceptually, I love the idea. I really do. I think for me right now it's just kind of about timing.
I've always enjoyed going to that Denver Walls. It's really cool to be able to talk to the artists and the community that comes out for that. I think that would be something really fun here. If there's not another festival like that next year, I'd like to pull it off, but I think spring it seems like there's just no way, but maybe fall, but that again is a Michaela question because there are a lot of events in the fall and I don't want to be stepping on toes and
Yeah, 100%.
Stretching everybody more thin than they already are. But I really like that pulled all this together and that it looks like something we can maybe look at.
I'll just add, I think it's really, really cool, and I love the idea of trying to do something that is not just bringing art here, but an event. And I think that was one of the really nice perks about having the murals painted, having the artists down under the castle, and so people can kind of witness the art being created and talk to the artist and see, what was going on and how it all works. I think that's a really interesting aspect of it. I would defer to staff in terms of Michaela and Matt and others in terms of whether or not we can handle it. Spring probably sounds too aggressive, but I'm not necessarily scared of trying to be aggressive and maybe shooting for the fall if that could work. And I'm in favor of at least moving forward and taking the necessary steps as we move into budget season to budget a placeholder to see if we can at least get some money in the budget so we're not foreclosing it from being a possibility. And then just continuing the conversation. And if staff is saying like, absolutely no way, they're stretched way too thin and we can't pull this off, because we don't want to try to do something like this and then not execute well, right? Like we want it to be a success. We've got high standards for everything that we do here, so we don't want to be reckless with putting something together that's half-baked, right? So, but if staff feels that they can handle it and we've got the funding for it, I say let's go for it.
So I take a slightly different tack. I mean, our job is to help set the agenda for staff. And if this is something that the board has said that they want to do, which we have, the best time to do it is in early 26 in advance of Sundance. And if it's a function of reorganizing what staff does in 26 to prioritize this, I am all for it. So, let's take a few other events off the list, push into 27, and let's go find a way to make this happen. Because you get closer to the end of 26, everybody's going to be knocking over, like, how do we make ourselves attractive for Sundance? If we get in front of that, it's going to pay off a lot, I think. I mean, granted, having 10 murals that all have a film theme could be awkward, but the point is, if we do this every other year, they get wiped away. So even if we have a crummy bunch of art, it goes away in a couple of years. So I'm all for this. I love the fact that CAPS leverage their contacts to get this information. This is great, and I want to see this in the budget, and I want to see it prioritized for the spring. And let's deprioritize other things to make it happen. That's my favorite.
Yeah, no, I think one conversation that we haven't had in a really long time is kind of like doing a census of like all the events and whether there are some that have kind of run their course and maybe it's time to move on from them and focus on the ones that are new and a big success. We shouldn't always just continue to do the things that we've always done because we're always doing it. So.
I think that's super important. It's something that's top of mind for me of, I don't want to add more events to staff until we've looked at everything that they're doing. And because we already know that they're over, like they have PTO time they can't even use, right? So like, I like your idea. If this is something that we're going to do, then we have to make space for it and not just give them something else. Because I think there's already too much. And some of the events, like I would like to have the most ROI on whatever events we're having. And I think some of them are nice, but could maybe pivot a little to something else. So separate lane, but I think the only way I would be into this is if there's a
Give and take,
removal
yeah.
of some, yeah. This is great though.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
What's the ideal timing, Andrew?
She'd said late spring or fall. And it had mostly to do with temperature. And again, this was like, it was charity. I sent her an email and said, hey, you know what? I was thinking how many walls and just really basic stuff. And she came back with almost a proposal, right? But and this was just before the weekend. So, phoning her up and just getting serious and being really direct with some of those questions would be a great idea. And I think now you have my copy, but she's got her signature at the bottom of that, right? So staff can go direct if that's what they want to do. All right.
I do like Neil's idea of maybe taking a look at the events that we are doing, because this one, in addition to creating, a really fun community event, is it leaves more of a sense of place. So we also, in addition to creating a great event, to your point, make ourselves more attractive for Sundance and others to come to our town. So that to me feels like there's better ROI than maybe some of our other events that we're doing that, to your point, may have run their course. So maybe that's something we need to look at to thin the herd for staff to have time to focus on other things.
And one of the biggest chunks of the budget here is the marketing, and I don't know exactly what that entails again, but if she's outreaching on social and talking to all her contacts in Boulder and, really spreading the word for this to get our name out there, especially in advance of Sundance, it'd be fantastic. Yeah. Get it out on social media.
All right, so in terms of next steps then to move this along, we can take care of the budgeting in terms of working with Streetwise. Do we want to have Drew kind of continue the conversation or do a handoff to staff and kind of take it from there? And separately, we can have, maybe at our work session in September, we can do an assessment on what the events are that we've got planned for 2026. Yeah. 2026. And it's the future. Figure out, what we want to continue and allocate it to our time doing. It just doesn't feel real. 2026. Right?
You're right.
We're supposed to have hoverboards.
Okay.
E-bikes and scooters. I mean, we're pretty close.
So I'll talk to JG and Michaela and we'll figure out who takes point on, which I think should be Michaela probably, on talking to Streetwise. She's got all the experience. I don't know. I mean, I'm happy to continue pushing it, but
She's still smiling.
It's out of my wheelhouse.
One question we didn't talk about is sort of, let's call it the 28, call it 30 because it's an even number. I'm going to ask CAPS what they think and kind of expecting the answer. So is the 30K out of the existing CAPS budget, or would this be additive to the budget? I mean, how do you see this given that this is an event, right? As I use the National Trails as an example, it is an event. CAPS would help with some of the work, but in your head, was it 30K-ish coming out of the existing CAPS budget? Or was this going to be an incremental thing that the town does and CAPS assists with it?
So having run these numbers over the weekend without being able to talk to my committee, so I don't know if I can really speak for everyone here. I sort of envisioned a split, that it would be something like you guys were saying, that it was an event, so it was a superior event, like whatever, Chili Fest or one of the concerts or something, but also a mural product out of it, so I actually thought maybe there'd be a share there.
Got it. And personally, I think that's reasonable, because I think of I think it really, and I keep going back to OSAC, like, that's a big event. There's nothing in the OSAC budget for National Trails Day. It's just something that we do as a staff, right? Like they've got their 5K, and then there's like separate items, for National Trails. And I know there's not a lot of cost for National Trails Day, a lot of human glue, but that's one event that just comes to mind.
All right.
All right, thanks.
Sounds good.
All right, so we got
Very exciting.
not quite an hour.
Item 1.
Item 1. Item 2 is the Sundance Film Festival, and when I sent out the budget and the sort of our work plan draft, I just mentioned kind of at the end that it's coming, and some of our members, especially Chris and Brandon, have contacts and know the world. We don't have any specific plans, we don't have any specific budgets, but we wanted to just talk in the spirit of dinner with the council about what the town has in mind. If you're spinning up a committee, if you would like our help, if there are ideas, what can we do for you?
What are the dates for the actual festival?
It's like January of 27.
Last week.
Last week in January. So it's 27, but it'll come real fast, right? I mean, again, it's the future we need to be. And are you guys planning on thinking about
outdoor movies?
Yeah, no.
Outdoor with some hot chocolate.
We could use the civic space.
Yeah.
Are you guys thinking about, short-term rentals and all the ways that this is going to impact the town, and in case if we can capture any of it? Is there any planning going on yet? No.
Well, we passed our short-term rental ordinance, and we've got kind of like a regulatory framework, and we did discuss how that is going to impact short-term rentals, just with the shortage of hotel space in Boulder. So short-term rentals are going to go crazy. But we do have a hotel that's going to break ground next month across the street, so that'll be good to have a hotel back in Superior.
Caps, I've been doing all the talking. You guys have any ideas or suggestions, or you're thinking along the lines of Sundance?
So my wife works at the Boulder Auto. She's been there for like 8 years. They're like going to become like an official venue with Sundance. And I do know that like the Dairy Arts Center and like Fox Theater and a few other venues, there's still a chance to maybe offer like the Civic Center, the new space, if we wanted to be an official venue for Sundance, to kind of get that in front of them to see if they're open to it. I don't know how far out we are or if they would even be into it, but I know when we talked about budget, we had put some aside for that. That could be a way to save if they would come in but they don't guarantee like what they're going to use the space for. So it could be anything from like an American Express like VIP thing to like a Netflix premiere thing. It could be, it's one of the things that they just sort of like want people to trust them. But there could be a way to create a dialogue if you guys are interested in.
But in either of those cases, that's some number of people coming potentially into downtown to experience, hopefully, a food hall and Boulder Baked and Menchie's and all the other shops that will be open. So it's something.
Maybe the sports table could do something. They had a lot of volume. Maybe they could throw up some screens or something. Volleyball courts.
I mean, I'd be interested in throwing the civic space in there. I mean, we want to activate it and get it used, and it seems like, if they say no, then it doesn't make a difference, right? Like we're just continuing to do the same that we're doing currently. But if it ends up getting used, who knows where that could lead. So I think that's a worthwhile thing to explore.
Can I ask JG or Matt, does any staff have connection to the Boulder Art Commission and the whole Sundance organizational?
Yeah, so Ellen, our economic development manager, she's been meeting with Boulder reps and representatives of the event, as well as the Boulder Chamber. So she's been involved in those discussions and meetings, and will continue to be involved. And the upcoming event, how we can play a part in it.
I don't really know how this works, but this is a new thing, and I feel like we need to have like a subcommittee or some kind of group that is specifically focused on this, so that we don't miss things and that we're not.
If it's going to be in Boulder for decades, I mean, maybe there is a AG for Sundance even, I don't know. Yeah, we bring it up because it's art adjacent, but I'm not sure that it's CAPS necessarily that is Superior's committee on Sundance, you know.
I think the answer wasn't that, like, it didn't sound like we're thinking about it. I think we're all thinking about it, and we're all thinking about what is this going to look like? How do we capitalize on it in a way that's authentic and matches what Superior residents want? Don't turn this place into a Sundance, like, temporary, like, wild, like, just take it out of the element of what's here. So bringing businesses, bringing art, bringing new events. And so we're all thinking about these things. The economic development piece of it, for sure. But I think we need people to be specifically focused on this, to move this along and have those conversations or the dialogue, so that it doesn't have to be brought to us every time. Like, there should be people that are actively working on it. I think that would make the most sense. And I don't know who that is. So it's good to talk about it. But I think my first thought of having them come use the space is we have to balance what residents want, and also how do we make smart decisions about creating an attachment to the event that is a legacy for the town, that is in a positive way for the residents. Because there's going to be some residents that don't want anything to do with it. But then there's going to be some folks that are having a countdown for it. So, and I don't know what that is exactly. We haven't gotten feedback from residents. I mean, we're just not there. We won't know probably until the first, until it happens, and then they go, ooh, I like that, or ooh, I did not like that. And I think that's what it's going to look like. But I do think it's important that we have some specific people tasked to work on this.
Do we have an idea as to whether they're looking for venues like outside of Boulder proper? They are? We know that?
They're looking for everything. Right now, they want everything on the wall, so to speak, so they can.
I mean, like, that's what,
yeah.
I mean, that's
exactly.
It's exactly what he just said, right? Like, so having the dialogue of event spaces, and we should be a part of that.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I'm assuming there's like a geographic limitation for like what their reach is, right? Like,
Parker doesn't have a chance.
Like, they're not going to be looking in Denver, right? Denver's too far, right? So
Yeah.
like, this is a Boulder event, but
I mean, the
We're
next
if
exit up the freeway seems like pretty.
if it stretches to Lafayette or to Louisville or to Superior,
Yeah.
that's not too much of a geographic distance for the festival.
I feel like the data exists for that if we just look at what the impacts were on the surrounding communities from where it was held before, and the capacity, like how far out did it really go? And I don't know who it is to talk to about that, but
Would Ellen have that, access to that information?
yeah.
And I would love to be part of it, so if you want somebody from our crew to start, because my connections with Boulder Chamber, obviously Superior Chamber, and I'm happy to work with Ellen and dive into that a little bit more, and it doesn't mean it doesn't exist with a whole bunch of people, but I would love to be part of that.
I was just gonna wait till tomorrow's event to see how it goes, because I'm like really excited about the ballet and the Philharmonic, so I was like,
Yeah.
it's kind of like our first attempt to doing something
That's
at the
awesome.
new space, and so I was just kind of gonna catch a vibe from that, and then,
It's good.
and then kind of go from there. It's definitely, I think they are just looking for like whatever they can find, and then like those fit whatever they think they need. But from what I hear, they're a little worried that they don't have enough spaces because of how large the crowd that it might attract. It's big.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Just think of everyone from Denver coming over this way.
Well, I think we should just do whatever we can to be a part of it. And if it doesn't go well, we don't have to do it again.
Doors are open.
You know, if we miss out on an opportunity because we don't try, that seems like a mistake.
I guess the only other thought was if doing something independently, like having like a director come and speak, or maybe a director that paints, like, and having like a show of like paintings that are film related from like an artist, like, I don't know, like, let's say like Jim Carrey or someone, like someone who like does both, to where it's not as like we're showing films every night. It's just like one little event, like one day or something. There's like a ton of people who do both, like paint and also act. That's sort of something that,
Instead of like trying to participate in the festival, we try to kind of like steal from it a little bit, you know, like leverage some of all that talent being in the area.
Compliment. It's a
Poli-
compliment to the
poli-
organizers when you're
politician,
trying
we're in the room full of
to,
politicians.
you know, be part of it.
Yeah.
So what does it look like then, as far as like moving forward? I mean, Heather, it sounds like you want to be involved in that, but is there something that has to be formalized for like a group, or is this just really kind of like the Marshall Fire Memorial, like there's a group that meets consistently
We are an official subcommittee. So
to talk about it? Yeah.
Seems like if any town resources are involved, we should probably formalize this to the extent that we can, whatever that means, whether it's an official subcommittee or whatever, but I think given the potential for economic impact in the region and in Superior, totally support that. I think we have a wonderful opportunity to kind of put our best foot forward and say, yep, we want to participate, we are here, we're open for business, so to speak, and let's see what this looks like for Superior. And like Mark said, if it, like after the first year, like, maybe not, then we can make that decision, but to not try, I think is a missed opportunity.
And it can't be, forgive my saying, it can't be a half-assed effort because we're playing behind the 8 ball. Louisville is completely, they have infrastructure, they have restaurants, they have everything they need, they've got hotels. We don't have hotels, that hotel's not gonna be ready by the time Sundance opens, there's no way 14 months is gonna do it. What can we do to get them to invest in our town? Because we've got to be able to contact concierge services, the people flying into the airport. And I know nobody wants to talk about that, but that's gonna be a really, really big thing, that we can get some people in here. And we have to prove to them that we have the viable venues that can hold events, showings, screenings, parties. I mean, Bambi's can hold a party if, you know, the eatery can hold a party if the Creative Chat could get Bootsby's up and running. That could be a massive event to sell out the entire night. But we have to be able to convince them that we're up and running and ready to go, rather than just having a piecemeal effort. So it's got to be a very, very creative effort. So, and you guys are the most creative community, you know, group that we've got. So brainstorm like crazy on this one. This can't just be creative committee, throw out some ideas, get as creative as you possibly can, because we are playing behind on this one and we need to catch up because we've got stiff competition to get people in here. And like I said, not to be a wet blanket on this, but that's the reality of it, because I have been reaching out to people and it's kind of like, they're like, great, what do you have? I'm like, oh, we're gonna have, but not for 27, so.
We're gonna have murals.
We can have murals in 27 degrees in January, but yeah, I mean, they want these are people that are used to coming to a full service community and they're getting everything that they want laid out ahead of time. And we just have to make sure we fit the bill for that.
I mean, use the field across the street there. Okay, so we put up a massive white tent, we put some plywood down, so we basically turn it into whatever we want, some kind of
no one's playing on it.
hall or something that can receive 500 people, or entertain 250 people and show screenings or whatever. I mean, get creative on this.
So I think I just heard 2 different perspectives on kind of who's in charge, or where, you know, Jason, I think you sort of suggested that maybe CAPS is in the forefront of this. Heather, I think you were suggesting maybe there's a council subcommittee.
I think maybe it's kind of like, it could be an amalgamation of many things in CAPS. It could be economic development. It could be historical committee. It could be a lot of different groups that can have maybe even like a liaison from each one creates the committee of people that are really invested in making this successful. I don't want to make it exclusionary. I just want as many people with great ideas. Just throw in great ideas. Whoever's got great ideas goes. Doesn't care who it comes from. You know, what our strength is going to be coming up with great ideas that are going to get their attention.
Okay, so who's at the top of that, Mark? Like that type of committee that would involve several council members, several AD members, several staff members. Who is the chairperson of that subcommittee?
I mean,
Heather?
no, I mean, we can structure it however we want. I mean, I don't think, have you ever had like a subcommittee of the board with multiple, you know, council of board members and advisory committee members.
We haven't had to.
We haven't had to.
Very
right.
unique.
But yeah, I mean, I like the idea of putting the people on this who are passionate about it, who want to do, the work and make things happen, not force it on CAPS's plate necessarily, but put it on any subsection of CAPS and council, and frankly others.
But we put a call out to the community to say, the town is putting together a planning committee for Sundance. Please, if you're interested in being a part of this committee, please let us know by insert date here.
But what is that? So with the Marshall Fire Remembrance Subcommittee, having non-AG residents seemed like it was problematic. So what do we have to do to have a resident volunteer committee? Does it have to be an advisory, we have to form an advisory group for that, or how do we?
We could call it a task force.
Task force. That's a good name.
Yeah.
Sundance Task Force.
And if you call it an advisory committee or even a subcommittee, then it has to be just.
I love it. And we can have staff, residents.
Because I wouldn't want to like over formalize it too, like, you don't want to spend so much time thinking about like, gotta have like a mission statement and this one,
Charter.
and like charter and all that.
Agreed, I agree.
Who's, when you guys meet and
I agree.
I mean, there are certain things that we'll need to do from public meetings, record keeping and things like that, but to the extent that we can avoid kind of over complicating and formalizing it, I'd be on that camp. Try to keep it more simple.
Task force sounds nimble.
Keep it simple, superior.
Yeah. And we're creating another entity that has staff time on it, so we've got to put more staff onto that too, so we've got to be very respectful to over taxing the staff who's already overtaxed on everything else.
So the first Sundance in Boulder is January 27th?
Yes.
So, got time, but not a lot of time.
Fast.
We gotta be in these talks though.
Yeah, right.
And there needs to be like, I think the capacity for someone that is autonomized to like have those without them having to come in front of us to be like, I want to talk to someone.
Right.
Like that's inefficient. And so, I don't know.
So notwithstanding what the town might do, CAPS had 50,000 that it sort of earmarked in its budget for Sundance. Do you guys want to talk a little bit about, I mean, I know I was there for the conversation, so I'd love to kind of have you guys talk about what you're conceptualizing, what CAPS could do around Sundance.
And, well, Brandon and Chris maybe, and all of you speak to what you were thinking, but it was also kind of this conversation starter specifically. I mean, I put that in there as not in the spreadsheet, but also, this probably is something that's worth investing in for the town. I don't know if it's part of CAP's budget or just something that the council needs to be thinking about, for investing in whatever it is, parking or building tents or screens or
Plywood.
Just a lot of plywood. But did you guys, I mean, there were some clever ideas tossed around in some previous meetings. Anybody? I think Chris and Brandon had.
I feel like you would need to spend some money on the equipment if you were to like offer the space like as a venue for like movie production sort of stuff. So you would need like speakers and audio visual equipment for that, and maybe the budget would kind of go towards that. I wonder like if they decided to use it for something, what their standards might even be, because those projectors could be really expensive. So they might even come in with that, and so that might not even be something you need the budget for. But
And Civic Space has a pretty nice AV setup. Not necessarily like movie projectors, but at least the sound stage is really nice. It could fit, 400 people? Is that right?
Standing room.
Shoulder to shoulder.
You mean maximum occupancy?
With the doors open.
150 for the stage in there.
Okay.
How much are you guys put towards advertising dollars? Because we're going to get lost in the noise of Boulder. It's going to be loud. It's going to be a lot of people fighting for this. The whole competition thing. Is 50,000 to be part of that? Is going to be enough?
I don't know. That's a good question for the Sundance task force.
Good deflection. To that point, Matt, thinking if this event's in January of 2027, that means we're probably going to have to spend some money in 2026, assuming we move forward to the task force. Is there any any budget requests in the 2026 budget specifically earmarked for Sundance?
I have to back.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's what CAPS is trying to do. is
No, I
put
mean,
that
outside
line,
of caps, like
you know.
something that, some bucket of money that the town has, because we're probably gonna need to front some money to get this thing going.
Yeah, I mean, to Jason's point, all that work is going to be in 26.
Yeah.
So that we're on the agenda. Because I'm guessing they're going to nail down most of that agenda like September in terms of who's showing what and what venue.
Yeah.
We had thrown out in one of our, we had talked about what if we did a Superior Film Fest,
Yeah.
right? Just to leverage, so we do that. Or what if we sponsored, I'm sure we have some talented filmmakers here. What if we sponsored an admission to the festival somehow? I don't even know if that's feasible, but, we could try to get our name out there in a variety of ways.
Yeah, and I love the idea of like an under 20 aged film, competition, just because like with what Mohai's churning out, it's not amateur stuff. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of like, hey, there's a $20,000 prize for the best under the age of 20.
What is Mohai turning out?
Some amazing films.
That becomes regional.
Like, I don't know what
Just Superior.
class it is, but they're turning out some great short films.
So there's some sort of like filmmaking
Yeah.
class?
Yeah, and then now, like, you can do some amazing thing with AI filmmaking, and just there's so many tools out there. Like, how do you potentially create an event that's distinct from the standard Sundance stuff, but is still relevant? A bunch of 20-year-olds and under doing AI movies, budget of $1,000, and cash prize of 20, or well, I don't know, just make it up the first, right? But there's a lot.
My daughter Lauren's Monarch class, she graduated the year before last. She won award for Best Director at the Boulder International Film Festival.
Yeah.
So they really are like doing some cool stuff with students, and I know we'll have a lot of student interest in local families. These kids are so into film. It's really fun.
Can we just like host something at the community center that's a Sundance Film Festival curious like event for anybody that wants to be involved in like how the town's going to be involved to come out for that?
Open house for
Because there's going to, there's going to be a lot of people that want to be involved and have lanes and experiences like this that are not us. And it would be good to invite them to sort of let that task force establish itself versus us trying to assign framework for it.
I think that young people have more knowledge about the industry and how it all works than probably any of us here.
Get the youth council involved, for sure.
When we get like the real serious film students.
I feel like that would
Get
be
CU Film School involved.
to
They're a major player in the Sundance Festival, and my daughter just graduated from the CU Film School, so got it in right there. So maybe sorry, Chloe, you're probably pissed off right now. Not that she's watching. But yeah, I mean, reach out to the film school, because if they're going to be an integral part of this whole organization with Sundance, if we can get some of those people to say, yeah, Superior's a great place, we'll go and talk to them. Maybe there's some way to, like have your daughter or the students at the schools come in. That's probably the best way to tackle it from that point. Get them sympathetic to us, because we've got an interest in pushing for the youth filmmakers of America or whatnot.
So why don't we add this to the work session for September? At a minimum. But I like the direction that we're heading in terms of putting together some sort of entity that's going to be focused on this, to be determined as to like how it's comprised.
As you're working on the budget in the next couple of months, be thinking if there's an investment to be made.
Totally. All right, we've got 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
Item 2 complete.
We've been talking to, some of the big, like the function of CAPS in terms of murals and Sundance and stuff, and it's been good. So maybe I'll just roll 3 and 4 together. This is just the kind of the same old, like CAPS's role in town with having kind of a different size budget than some of the other AGs. We just want to hear from the council kind of what your expectations are for us. And then, Neil, I would lean on you a little bit to maybe reintroduce number 4, but we've got this issue of, budget, where the money comes from, whether we want to be eligible for some of these grants, whether we want to have like a foundation type or friends of type 501c3 so that we can accept donations and that kind of stuff. So that's just a very quick introduction to kind of lumping together 3 and 4. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things I've talked about with staff separately, and this goes back a couple years ago in terms of just a conversation around trying to get the SCFD money, it has to be tracked separately, like it needs its own line item and it can't be part of the capital budget. And staff has sort of said that they can do this. It'll just be some, like it'll have like a separate tab. It won't be its own budget, but they can track it separately. That's a key thing that needs to be provided to SCFD, and you've got to do that with some track record. And then we can start to get SCFD money, right? Like right now, we're not even eligible for it, versus Boulder gets a boatload of SCFD money. Obviously, Denver gets the lion's share of it. But it's, you know, hey, we've got a CAPS committee, which is step one, and then there's other things that we should have done a while ago to try to start getting ourselves this money. And then the question gets into, you know, ultimately, because every community does it a little differently, so then CAPS could potentially administer those funds. But the key thing right now is making our budget receptive to getting SCFD money, which we hadn't structured yet. Now we will. So 26 budget will have that, and then we can sort of go down the path of trying to get the SCFD money, which is a whole different thing that I think it's kind of okay or to do. Like once we've done the work on the back end, then I think we've got ourselves set up for it. But you know, having been here for a lot of years, you know, the CAPS budget has gone up and down and all around. You know, we had the CAPS master plan, which sort of articulated $150K per year to kind of realize a lot of things like the arts walk, you know, to get from point A to point B. The pandemic happened, so we cut the budget. The fire happened, so we cut the budget. Then the real question gets into, you know, to Drew's point, is like, what are we doing with the funds? And there's sort of, you know, every CAPS group's a little different. There's some focus on service or events that has a focus on temporary art installations on loan, and then some murals. What I like is that every time we've got a new set of CAPS members, there's a different focus. So what I don't want to do is ever suggest to you, like, I really only want this type of art, because I think you guys have done an amazing job of bringing in diverse types of art. I think some of the temporary exhibits, you know, in the past, you know, whether it was the shovels that make up the wings or the weird pods thing in Purple Park a few years ago, those got conversations started, and that was what it was like with the pods thing. Everybody either despised it or really liked it. It was just so polarizing. I was actually sad that they were only temporary, because I'd love to see those come back. But I love the fact that we've kind of ebbed and flowed and had very different things. But you know, the arts walk, or whatever we used to call it, you know, it's still a sort of a stuck. Like we haven't funded that appropriately. Like we haven't set it up so that we can connect downtown to the community center. And I think that's even more relevant today than it was when we put the master plan together. So however we can kind of, you know, find a way to get you more money to kind of focus on that is really something I'd like us to do. Just because I think that's going to be a great way as we do more events in downtown, that we create a reason to walk to downtown or to go to downtown. But at the same time, the community centers, you know, it's a parallel jewel within the community spaces that we have. How do we use that as well? Long answer to a preamble.
Yeah, no, thanks. And
yeah,
and some of the stuff about the budget, you know, the things that we talk about in our meetings, but now we're here with the council, so some of that budget stuff, you know, getting our money out of infrastructure or whatever, you know, like that's why we're here, I guess, to ask for help if that's, you know, I don't understand it necessarily, but being eligible for some of those grants would be outstanding.
And I don't know if anybody on CAPS, or sorry, on staff can, you know, elaborate on where we're at with that transition, but Jeff was kind of, last I saw, you know, by email a few months ago, is that we're going in the right direction on that.
Yeah, it's something we're going to discuss in our budget work sessions with the council.
And there's also, you know, foundations and friends of and type things, and I think historical has an interest in this as well, and we've got a Marshall Fire Committee interest in accepting donations as well. So
I think from a restructuring of the budget, you know, and we're going to be going into budget season now, so I'll pay more attention to it, like looking at it now with this kind of front of mind. But you know, just the idea that, you know, we've got like long-term investments, whether it's an open space acquisition or an art installation or building out a park, like those are obviously capital projects. They're meant to be permanent or long-lasting. They're not events. You know, events are different, and to the extent that we have like any of our budget that we've got events overlapping with capital, and we should try to figure out a proper way to split all those things. So, and then to the extent that there's shared events that make sense for historical and CAPS to share an event, and the budget should be shared accordingly, or if there's a historical art installation that's going in, like the minor statute or something like that, like, you know, that seems like a shared capital expenditure. So if there are improvements that can be made to the budget separate and apart from the whole foundation thing, we should make those changes just to have a cleaner, better functioning budget going forward, where we're not kind of like mixing capital projects with events.
Thanks. Caps, I feel like I've spent a lot of time talking. Anybody have any comments on this?
It was 2 hours.
Okay.
Well, we'll be here all night. So
If anybody had any, we got 3 minutes, any burning questions or anything on 3 or 4?
I wrote a comment, and this is not specific to CAPS, but I think it's specific to all our communities and with the staff here, or all of our advisory committees. So I want to make sure that we're all clear on lines of communication across the board. So with CAPS specifically, and I remember this was the case in Park ProStack, there's some members of CAPS that have these amazing relationships, like Brandon connecting us with a mural expert in Boulder is phenomenal. But then there's a whole transition to where it becomes a staff obligation. And we got a bunch of free labor around this table, more or less free. I mean, we're free. And how does staff get plugged into leveraging us, but so we're not tripping over your feet, is really what I want to make sure that we can leverage the relationships that some of these CAPS members have with artists in the field, but at the same time help you get your jobs done so that we're not cross-communicating and making it harder to do your job, if you know what I mean. Because there's been some tension in the past with like Boulder County open space and I think OSAC members reaching out to them directly versus going through staff, but at the same time, if Brandon has a relationship with somebody over here, does it make sense to go through staff to have that communication, or can Brandon reach out to them directly? And this is hard because art is very different than like, why are the cows on the open space again? And I want to make sure that we're leveraging this group here, but helping you get your job done.
I mean, I think it's a very good question, and it's difficult to answer. I mean, I think we get a lot of great ideas and input from committee members. They're really good about showing up and working events, but the formal communication has always been through staff. And that seems to be appropriate. I don't know how to change that and make sure we don't get sideways.
I think we need to balance things, right? We don't want to have people also making representations binding the town to, oh yeah, we're totally going to sign us up for that, that date, and we've got an event scheduled, and all of a sudden staff doesn't know about it.
Yep.
So like we want to make sure that we've got the proper kind of standard operating procedures in play.
And we're aware of this, that, she actually, when I sent her this email, said, can you sign something that says you're not going to use this without using us, or, steal my work, or, make any kind of commitment. And I very quickly went back and said, that's the one thing I absolutely cannot do, is commit the town to do or not do anything. And she went ahead and did it anyway. There's a star in there that says, please don't use this, without coming back to us, right? But I think and training is probably in order, but I think we know where some of those lines are, that we can't obligate the town to various things, right? We do have some committee members who have, again, these strong contacts that are not, that don't want to just give them, I don't want to say give them up, but
they're protective.
Not even protected, just, if this is my buddy, and now because I'm on this committee, I have to go and loop the town into this conversation where we're just talking about an idea for, could this be a possibility here, or whatever, right?
I think just simple communication though. I mean, all of these staff liaisons are here to help the committees and trying to make it as streamlined and as efficient as possible. So if there's someone who has a contact, just just let the liaison know, say, hey, I have this buddy in Boulder that can do X, Y, and Z, and that staff liaison is going to help make it efficient and make it work. You know, it's not our job to try and make things complicated, but we do have some boundaries that we have to work in.
One thing in this sort of sidebar, we used to do training for the committee members, and I don't think we've done that in like 3 or 4 years.
We did it last year.
Oh, we did, okay, all right, that shows what I know.
We'll be another next year, early next year.
I'll sign you up for training.
There we go.
All right.
We came together with really nice package.
Good discussion.
Thank you for your time, everyone.
Thank you, Caps, for volunteering, serving.
Thank you.
We're way better off because of you.
Yeah.
So excited for the things to come. And thanks for joining us.
Thanks for all your work on the murals. Very excited.
Not this garbage.
Yeah.